In this episode of our 2025 SL Mid-Power e-bike shootout, we have the Orbea Rise back for its third time. It's third time the charm. Let's get into it. That was wild.
I was really expecting a much bigger jump. So in today's video, we will be going over one of the 13 bikes in this year's shootout, which is covering the SL or low power, mid power, whatever you want to call it, category of e-bikes. We are back in Klamath Falls, Oregon, our host destination, staying at the Running Y Resort. Now, before we get into the rest of the performance of how this bike did out on the trail, I'd like to take a moment and thank all the partners who have made this series possible. Again, we got 13 bikes. It is a lot of man hours, time, and without their support, we would not be able to do this series. And of course, thanks to you all for watching. We have outfitted all of the test bikes with Schwalbe's radial constructed tires. We have the Albert Gravity out back and the Magic Mary Gravity up front.
And we have partnered with Endura to kit us out for the rides, and Giro keeping our feet glued to the pedals and our knees safe when I run out of talent.
So with that said, Cole, myself, you guys are probably familiar with us. This is Pat. He is, I feel like that was such a and this is Pat. It's like a movie in introduction. So Pat is actually one of our members in our members community. And for the last two shootouts we have picked one of our top tier members to come out and be a guest tester, see what this process is all about. And of course, add some diversity to our voice as kind of spoiled media guys with a more grounded consumer who has to pay for his bikes and bring that perspective to the table. So Pat, thank you, one, for being a member, and two, for coming out on this trip with us.
And three, for putting up with us.
That's right. That's been the hardest part.
All right, so to try to keep this video from getting any longer, we're not going to recite anything that you can read on a website or from a chart. So we're not going to focus really on every single technological feature or every number in a geo chart. We will link to our written review at theloamwolf.com or to Orbea's website if you would like to learn in more detail about things like their HMI, the human machine interface, or every single angle of every tube. So with that said, let's get into the drive unit performance and battery from our range test.
So before we got down to the shootout, we had a standardized test that we put all the bikes through. That is a 13-mile, 1,300 feet of elevation gain loop by a 195-pound rider. The Orbea Rise did that loop in 56 minutes and 55 seconds, the fastest time on test. Obviously, it's the most powerful bike on test. But with that,
Rocky?
At 85.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
That's right,
Yep.
in the RS Plus mode.
In the RS Plus mode. With that said, it consumed 50% of its battery life. That is 315 watt hours of the 630 watt hour capacity battery, which isn't the worst on test when it comes to total drainage.
Yeah, most of the other bikes I think the Bosch post update was 59 minutes, and a lot of the other bikes were between 102 to 104. So it's not a huge time discrepancy. However, the Bosch post update was doing 388 watt hours consumed. So whereas the TQ was the most efficient out of the test. That said, you can also opt for a 420 watt hour battery if you would like to make this bike even lighter. There is also a 210 watt hour range extender.
Oh no. Oh.
God. Salad! So this is a prime example of more power doesn't always mean you're gonna make it up the hill. You gotta have some skills, which Sean clearly doesn't have. We've made it up the hill on less powerful bikes, and here he is. Fourth attempt for the day. Can he make it? The answer is...
We're wasting daylight here.
We are. I mean, so that's probably why you should just make it and stop messing up. 5 years later. Extra aggressive. Carrots. Celery. Jumpers.
No!
He's got to eat a salad! No, he cannot make it. There is no substitute for skill. Pat, why don't you talk about how you felt this bike climbed, got you up the hill, suspension and drive unit wise?
Yeah, plenty of power for me. Definitely, it got me up everything I needed to and keep up with everyone just fine. And so I really liked the power on it. I didn't notice it was draining battery super fast. I never got anxious about the power meter going down or anything like that. Yeah, and all that, we climbed a pretty technical trail, and I felt like I was able to rip up everything with it.
Okay. And as far as seated comfort, I know you own a Trek Fuel Plus with a coil shock, right? So how did this feel seated, body position, and all that?
It felt good. Not my favorite one, but I wasn't really thinking about that when I was on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you liked the power and overall kept you pretty happy for most of your climbs? All right, Cole, what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is the third time now this bike has been on tests in the SL Shootout. Giro really hasn't changed, or if at all. It's just right in the middle. It finds a balance between climbing position, traction, center of gravity, chainstay. It just is a really easy to get along with package.
I would agree with you. The reach at 485 is like creeping to the longer end of my favorite, numbers, but I'm 5'11", so I'm a little bit shorter than most of you guys. Based on the intentions and the other numbers of the bike, it has one of my favorite feels when you're on board. It just feels like one of the most balanced bikes front to back. I like the bar height, the wheel length, chainstay length. There's just a lot of really good things about how this bike sits and puts me on it over the trail. Also, the power is nice with, the new HMI interface that Orbea have done. There is some added confusion. And I guess by confusion, I just mean a bit of a learning curve. I would imagine that if you owned the bike and you really sat in with the manual and some videos, that you would figure it out, and it would be the only thing you have to think about. You wouldn't have to think about like 7 other different types of remotes and controls and lights to remember for battery range. So for better or worse, right, like it certainly isn't the same as just having a display screen that tells you the number percentage, right? You got to read these numbers. That said, there's some great integrations with Garmin's. There's this nice integrated mount. So if you've got a Garmin, which I would highly suggest you do if you have an Orbea, you can get a lot of stuff linked out over there. And again, the one-piece remote power mode system is cool. I know that we talked about like the more power mode button is below and less power up, which kind of got you for a second, because most is more power up top versus now. But the 30-second or like the boost button when you want to get that thing into the boost mode is cool. And yeah, just some neat features overall through that.
Pretty high tech.
Yeah.
And also with this system, you can tune the dropper to have a certain amount of drop in specific modes using the remote for technical climbing or other trail features.
Yeah, just a lot of little neat integrations in the tech for sure, which the tech geeks I think will really like. As far as drive unit sound while climbing, did it stand out in terms of whines, hums, anything? Where'd you guys think? Quiet? Not TQ quiet, not Bosch loud? Where was it?
It's kind of right in the middle for me on actual motor assistance noise. There's some other noises that we'll get into later, but as far as the assistant power noise, it kind of lands right in the middle.
Okay. So on the descending side, where did this bike stand out for you?
I really liked when you were kind of pushing into it and trying to pop off stuff. If you push into it, really had that nice feedback on there, and it would felt very playful with that, which was fun. The cornering took me some time to get used to on this bike, but overall it was really good.
What type of cornering and what were you struggling with?
It was the flat corners, and I felt like the front wheel wanted to kind of push out or not track along well, but yeah, overall it was pretty fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Cole, for you?
Yeah, very similar. Having spent a lot of time on this bike, I remember the body positioning that it likes. It does favor a more aggressive body position and more thought process into where you are weighting the bike in those corners, especially the flatter corners. Steeper or more supported corners, not as big of a deal. I think that all comes into the package of how stiff this bike is, and now having more bikes with similar characteristics, this is standing out as being a stiffer frame.
For sure, and yeah, and I think it's something that like we've talked about with many Orbea bikes in the past. It is a stiff bike, and when you're fresh, or maybe if you're just a stronger and better rider, right? Like Robert, one of our other testers, who's also 210 plus pounds, but also a very aggressive rider, and he rides a bike a whole lot, so he's pretty fit. For me, I can only push this bike as hard as it likes to be pushed for so long. And then I start getting into a spot, especially on like flat, kind of loose over hard conditions where I'm like, boy, I'm starting to get timid. I'm not wanting to put my chest up over that bar enough to keep that front wheel from wanting to drift a little wider and wider as the corner tightens up. So yeah, for me, like there are some absolutely amazing attributes about how this bike descends. The suspension is on the stiffer, sportier side of things.
Sportier is a really good term to put that in.
Yeah, it's not like, like overly harsh or abusive by any means, but it is a sporty, it gives you a lot of feedback, and like not necessarily like, again, in a negative way, but it lets you know what's happening beneath you very well. A lot of information is getting transmitted through the bike and the suspension to the rider, and that's great when you're on your game. And it just can mean that if the conditions are a little bit drier and looser, or maybe muddy and slippery as well, or you're just a little bit tired and you're like, I'm not ready to really command this bike and force it to dig in and hold, it can kind of want to run you wild a little. But yeah, that's my thoughts on part of that.
Yeah, it's fast. When you're charging hard and have the suspension set up for this bike, it will be one of the faster times you can lay down. At home, when I had this bike, I ended up running a little bit softer setup just to kind of have a little bit more comfort. I wasn't really pushing for times every time we're going out testing, trying to figure out all these minute details. So there is that aspect of it, of running this bike a little undersprung isn't a huge issue. I primarily like it in high, which is not the norm for me. Usually I'm going low. I look at it as a low and an extra low. Riding it in low really takes some steep terrain. It's really not needed to go in low on this bike.
Yeah, what were your thoughts about how it felt going down in terms of geo reactiveness, etc.?
Yeah, it felt pretty good being over the top and turning it in those corners. Felt like I could, if I could get over the front of it, then it wanted to link up pretty good. That
is a benefit of having a stiff frame, is in those high traction, really supportive corners, there's no squirm. It just like leaf springs you out.
Yeah, absolutely. Nevertheless, I think if you're looking to push hard, maybe you ride trails that have good traction usually, or more banked and supported corners, or again, maybe you're just a little heavier and like pushing hard. The thing is absolutely sick. The geo, the handling, the body position, like it is a blast to ride. There is, however, some things that really do take away from that ride experience, and that would be the noise while riding it.
This is the loudest bike that I've rode for sure. It would rattle, and you could tell when this bike was passing by too. You could hear it coming, and then you could hear it as it passed by. It was distracting a little bit, but I feel like if you got used to it, it'd probably just be another trail noise that you're getting used to. But it was loud.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, if you're standing on the side watching, filming a section, and you just see 5 or 6 different bikes go through, or if you're riding 5 different bikes back to back, it's maybe more pronounced than if you just bought it, owned it, and rode it every day and didn't know different.
Yeah.
Most of that noise is from the motor. There is some cable rattle, but it is, with how much noise is coming from the motor, it's hard to discern what is what, for me at least. But yeah, it's for sure something that's very noticeable, especially coming from a TQ bike.
One thing actually I think we should touch on, which is different than a lot of the other bikes, Shimano. I know you had some awesome stuff you were saying maybe 2 days ago about not really having ridden Shimano.
Yeah, I've never ridden it, and that the electric shifting on that one, that Shimano setup was very smooth, and when you want to hit that gear on the climb, it would just shift right away, which was nice. And
quieter than Axis?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think so, at least. And I didn't really think about it until I was like, man, I haven't heard anything or haven't like felt any fumbles with it. It was just bang right there.
What did you like about, or I should say, what did you think about the ergonomics of the shifters?
It was good. I definitely hit the downshift thinking it was the upshift a few times, and that was just one thing that I had to figure out. But I did that a few times when I first started riding it. But yeah, once I figured it out, it was
pretty happy.
Yeah.
What do you think about the brakes?
First time running those brakes, and I liked them. They weren't like super grabby like maybe some of the other
Mavens and stuff, yeah.
But
still had a lot of power too.
Ton of power, which was good.
And they were consistent and reliable, which was really nice.
Yeah, I felt like I never like grabbed too much brake, but I wasn't not thinking there was enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Shimano stuff?
So the biggest benefit in having Shimano shifting and Shimano motor is free shift. It is so freaking cool as far as integrations and new things to come to electric mountain bikes. Being able to charge down a hill, knowing you have a climb out, shifting down without having to pedal, and allowing that motor to kick in, shift your gears, or if you're in auto shift and it's allowing it to select itself, which I'm not a fan of. I like free shift more. Absolutely love that. That is a standout feature for me for sure.
It is a really, really cool feature, I would agree. And honestly, the same can be said, especially when we're like filming. You're climbing up something to get a new shot, and sometimes you'll like turn around and you're starting, from zero to drop into a shot, and you go to pedal out of a turn, and you're like, oh, I'm not in the right gear, but I can't pedal because it's a rock garden. So you can do like, a couple of shifts. That way, when you exit the next corner, you're back in a hard enough gear to get that sprint towards the camera. Which I think, again, is also a very cool feature and something I like. So, all right, let's move on to wrapping this thing up. Where does the bike sit for you in the scheme of things, and maybe who would you say is an ideal consumer for this bike?
I'd say definitely an aggressive rider would fit well on this bike. Might not be my first choice, but I would be very happy to ride this bike on my local trails and ripping around as kind of a travel bike and taking it to different places too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, this has proven to be a really good bike. It is why it is back again for a third time. Orbea's fit, finish, whole package. You have, I mean, their link is paint matched. Like, they go the extra mile when it comes to putting a bike together, and all those small details is really cool on their Mayo program, building, choosing your colors, doing that whole thing. But then also, if you are someone that likes to go on bigger rides, you have a bigger battery, you can tune down the motor, but then if you want to do that crazy hot lap, racing the sun rather, kick it up into the 85 Newton meter mode, and you can rip up the hill. So it's that like edging into full power while still being a lightweight, very aggressive mountain bike. And like Patrick said, aggressive riders are going to benefit most from this bike.
Yeah, so kind of like these guys, just because the bike isn't going to be my first pick doesn't mean it's a good bike, right? We are huge fans and proponents of picking the right tool for you, and some people, this may be an absolutely perfect bike for them. And it does have some amazing attributes on the trail that we talked about, right? I mean, the handling, the power, the battery size is great. It is an aggressive, fast, hard charging bike, both up and down, and it will reward the aggressive rider or a slightly heavier rider or someone who has a lot of traction that can absolutely mash this thing and maximize it. So yeah, Orbea Rise, and it is a good looking, nice, sleek package, no doubt. Not a huge fan of the headset cable routing. Not a huge fan of the noise that comes from the bike, but overall, it's a pretty solid machine. So that is the Orbea Rise. So stay tuned for the rest of the videos coming out before we get to the grand finale, where we see how this bike stacks up against the rest. Thank you, of course, for watching and engaging with our videos. Thanks to Schwalbe, Endura, Giro, Discover Klamath, and the Running Y Resort here in Klamath Falls. We'll see you on the trails.